welcome to another edition, and this is a special one tonight. Normally we do it from the hall, but tonight we're doing it um, from a Zoom kind of thing. And tonight we are bringing in a guest that is part of our Hall of Fame, the Chicago 16-inch Softball Hall of Fame that we do out of Forest Park on Saturday. It's the former president, Ron Kubicki, is coming on tonight, but Ron's still on the board and, of course, president for many years. And I have to tell you, going through his bio and everything else, one of the things that stands out, and in the short time that I've known him, he is a outstanding organizer because some of the things that he had to go through that I just learned about in the last couple of weeks because I'm new to the board really fascinated me. Ron, good evening,
John,
and what's going
up
on with you, young man? Ronnie? Can you hear me, Ron?
Now I can, but you were breaking up.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, I figured, but now you can hear me.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I was saying good evening. I gave you a little bit of an intro there about you being the past president, of course, and still being on the board. What is going on with you, young man?
Well, as you can see, I'm actually in Arizona. I live in Arizona now. That's one of the reasons I resigned as president of the board, because I felt the president needed to be right there when, if something comes up, something can be done. So, yeah,
Right.
I moved out here. Well, we've been out here 12 years, but I moved permanently and sold everything in Chicago and came out here about 4 years ago.
So it did become a permanent place for you, right?
Well, it's permanent, but I do come back for the summer. My wife and I, Deb, will be back May 21st, and we'll spend the whole summer out there until the end of September. Then we'll come back out here.
Very nice, very nice. So you go back with this softball thing tonight. One of the main things that I wanted to talk to you about, of course, is the Hall of Fame and how it is to become get into the Hall of Fame as a player, as a Wall of Fame Mayor Daley Award, and of course as a team. But you go back as far as what, 1972 with this?
Yeah, I've been in the game going on 53 years now. I've been fortunate to have some very, very good teams that I've been a part of. I started out with a team called Touch of Class, which is a team, and we took second in the Nationals in 1988, or 87, I'm sorry. Then from there, I moved on. I was invited to come up to help with Barrel of Fun, which was a major team. And then from there, we went to Sports Station, Splinters, and I think Pugliese Bucks. Most of my time has been with the 45s now. And I've been fortunate enough to be around 27 national championships. So pretty
Yeah,
lucky there.
that's amazing. And you know what? I'm sure you went through a lot. Just in here in that short couple paragraph here that you mentioned, you went through a lot in doing the organization of teams, and you probably saw so many great players and put together a lot were you always kind of that go-to guy in the sense of getting it all together?
Well, I wish I could say that I was a Hall of Fame player. I was not. I'd be the first to admit it. I played A-ball, and that was pretty much it. But I think, and if you ask anybody that's played for me or have known me, I'm really quite organized. My wife calls me Monk 2. I'm very, everything's organized, set up, straightened out. My teams, when we used to go out of town, all their uniforms would be in their rooms, on their beds, waiting
Wow.
for them. My lineups are always typed when I turn them into whoever's announcing the game, if it's a pregame or if it's a video game or a Zoom game. I'm pretty, and I'm not trying to pat myself in the back, but that's one of the reasons I'm in the Hall of Fame is for my organization.
Well, and it truly shows. I want to go back to 72 for a minute. What was the love and the passion? What attracted you to this 16-inch game? What was your attraction? Because we all have some kind of an attraction with this.
Well, actually, in 71, I started in a church team, and it was our Lutheran church. And to be honest with you, it was because of my wife. She wasn't my wife then, but we were kind of going together. So, and it was, her church, and I joined that church later on. But that's kind of started it. And I've always loved it. I was a pitcher. I actually played in the outfield. If you saw me now, they tied me with a sundial, so I'm not too fast. I always tell people that the reason I get out of the game, stopped playing, is I hit the ball over the fence. The lady got out of her car, picked it up, and threw me out at first base. So I knew it was time to get out.
Okay,
That's you're slow.
okay, that was the telltale sign that so
And that was it for sure.
no, it would be, if that lady ever comes up to Forest Park and says, Kubicki in as a player, I threw him out.
The
No,
worst part, she was in a wheelchair, and she still got me out. So
we're not going there. Thank God, Ronnie, thank God there was no social media back in those days,
yeah.
especially nowadays. But, this is amazing. I mean, some of the things that you've done. I mean, you're even having organized this Life Area Classic with the Rhonda and the Miller Lite and all this. I was reading about you. I mean, this takes time. This takes passion. This takes a work ethic.
Well,
You
the
put-
Life Classic came about. I was park director at the Hotchkiss Park District, and there was always competition between us, LaGrange, and there was three communities. Who had the best team, in their leagues. So Larry Randa, who is now a Hall of Famer, also in the media section, him and I were very good friends. He owned Suburban Life newspaper at the time,
Mhm.
and we got together and there was one other guy, Art. I can't think of his last name at the moment, but got together. We formed this Tri team. It was called at first was called the Tri Tournament, Tri City Tournament,
Mhm.
and then the year after that we added a couple more towns. We ended up with 32 communities, 64 teams, and it went over 2.5 weeks. And
Wow.
the finals were always televised on TV, and the newspaper coverage was unbelievable because Larry owned the newspaper, so we got tons of coverage, and it worked out real good. And when we finished that up after a while, I think it was like 15 years we did it. We moved it into junior high tournaments for the junior highs in the area of our where I lived. So we had a lot of those, and that's still going on today.
There was prize money involved in that. Was that with the Hodgkins thing?
Yeah, there was not. Well, there was prize money in the leagues, in each one of the leagues. There wasn't
Yeah.
prize money for the tournament itself. The
Right.
tournament was at no cost in the first year, and then after that, we charged them $50 per team to play in the tournament. All the expenses were covered by sponsors, the newspaper, so the teams had nothing really to lose to get in. And what we did is we took the first and second place teams in their league, and then did a draw, and the first teams could only play second place teams, and went back and forth across. You couldn't play a team from your own town to start with. And it worked down from there. And again, with 64 teams, it took some time. We used sometimes up to 4 different parks, different locations,
Got it.
and moved around. And I know the guys really enjoyed it. We had a traveling cup, which is in the Hall of Fame up on the top shelf. It was a silver mug or a chalice that used to go from park district to park district. Each team, the players individually got individual awards, either mugs, they got shirts, and a lot of publicity and a big trophy. So
Wow. Fantastic, fantastic. Um, Being, of course, I know you are the former president of the Chicago 16 and Softball Hall of Fame. How do you get approached? Was it during your playing days or was it after your playing days to become a board member? How do you get approached? Are you who approaches you? How do you become a part of this? Because you've been here forever.
well, when it originally started, I was I was asked to be on the committee for the current players. At that time, I think Sal Vasta was one of the chairmans. I can't remember them all. Ray Tops was there, and we had a system back then was everybody would come in with different names. We'd list them, go through them, and then keep on going through, counting them, and come down to the final 10, and then it was voted on in committee. And I was on that until I think about 2000, 2001, and then I left. I had other things I was doing because I was a lobbyist, I was a fireman, I was a park director, so I was getting pretty busy. And then Art, Lori, kind of got a hold of me out of Mount Prospect, says, we need you back on the board. So that's how I got on. And when Gary decided to leave, for some reason they thought I'd be a good president. And so I took over for Gary. And from that point on, there was things that I wanted to change, things that I wanted to see done. Too many times we were putting people in the Hall of Fame, not that anybody was not deserving, I'm not saying that, but there was no way to quantify somebody going in. So what I did is I wrote up the qualifications, the the nomination procedures. Then I installed a system, which I'll explain later, a point system, very similar to what they do in the Major League Baseball, where you had to get 74% of the vote to get in. Which then, when people got in, nobody could come back. You know, of course, people come back anyways, but they'll back say, well, how did this guy get in? Well, because he got the votes. And the nomination procedure and the rules that we set up are pretty stringent, and we tweak them every year, go back, and everything can always be improved upon. And same with the voting. This year we changed it a little bit, so you'll see a couple more people in there than we've had in the past. But that's kind of like that. I just tried to organize things, get things, laid out where there was a system for us to follow. And again, no one can really come back and complain and say, well, you guys didn't do this, you didn't do that. You're just picking your friends. That wasn't the case at all.
Right. When did you become, then of course you progressed to become, of course, the president of this. Do you remember
It was 2010, if I remember right.
Remember right. And was it a 13-year run?
Right? Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Just
a couple years, of 12 to 13 years.
In your time of doing it, you saw a progression with this, right? You saw this moving forward.
Oh, yeah. And we had, at the time, we had, the board was a lot smaller then. And the way we used to meet, where the Hall of Fame is now, the building, that used to be an old, we started out over at Forest Park District. And then they let us use that building. It was an old arts and crafts center. So we used to meet in there, and it was open to everybody to come in and stuff, and a lot of input. And then we started to make some changes afterwards. When I got in, we changed from going to Hawthorne for our dinner. We went to Drury Lane because we wanted to make it classy. We wanted to be, not that Hawthorne was bad. Howie was really good to us there, but it was very difficult because it was like a bleacher type of setting. And so people had to walk down, come up, and it got very noisy. So it was all hard. So when we moved into Drury Lane, Debbie Coronacci was the kind of the person we sent out to find us a place, and she found us Drury Lane, and Debbie did a fantastic job for us. And ever since then, that's where we've been. And as you were at the one last year. I haven't been in one last couple of years because I'm out here. But I think it's really classy. I think a lot of the people, when they go, they get inducted, they're kind of surprised at how nice it is and how the ceremony's done, and it's pretty amazing.
Not to use it, not to take it to the next level, but it's like an Academy Award setting because you're sitting at a table, you're having a dinner, and you go up there and you have that feeling that you want to make that speech and talk. And no, it's you talk about class. It's definitely class. During that run as the president, did you feel in those 13 years when you were there that, okay, I'm Ron Kubicki, I can do this and I can make this better? Did you go in with that mindset?
Yeah, being a manager of a park district or director and president of the State Association for Fire Districts and things like that, I had a lot of organizational skills that were kind of, inbred into me. So when I got on the board, I wanted things to change a little bit. I wanted to be more open to the public. I wanted them to see what we were doing and that things were done pretty organized. I can't say I did it all because the board, without the board, voting for it and going along with it, we'd never do what we did. I'll tell you a real quick story. Ray and I, on the field, we were always enemies because we played against each other. He was with touch, I was with the whips. And, we on the field, you hate each other. And as you get into the board, Ray and I were like opposites, you know what I'm saying? And now Ray's probably one of my better friends. I learn a lot from him. He does a lot, he's a great carpenter, not just because of softball, but he's a great carpenter, and he taught me a lot there. But, Ray keeps a lot of stats. People don't understand, when we put somebody in the Hall of Fame, it's very hard to quantify sometimes because of stats, because look at applications, and my lifetime batting average was 750. Not everybody batted 750. As a matter of fact, I think the greatest hitter I ever saw in the game was Johnny Kelleher, and Johnny and I talked many times, and Johnny didn't bat 750. So if he didn't do it, I guarantee you some of the other people didn't. So it's hard to get through it because there's no really way we can scrutinize any kind of statistics. Now, Bob Ancona out at Mount Prospect kept statistics, so we could see a lot of that, but the other ones did not. The Forest Park tournament, we could go back and look at those statistics. But it's so hard because the applications come in, and God bless everybody because they're playing the greatest game in the world, but not everybody's a Hall of Famer. Some of us are just like me. I admit it. I was never a Hall of Fame player. Wish I was. I wish I had the talent some of these guys. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to see, I think, some of the greatest players that ever played the game, like Keith Filkins, Wally Filkins, Larry and Jack Kelly. I mean, these guys played for me, and I marvel when I used to go out there.
Sure.
So it just, yeah, I wanted to make the Hall of Fame the best it could possibly be. And again, we had a lot of long meetings and setting it up, and some people left, some didn't. We got new board members in. But in the long run, I think we've done a pretty good job. Again, we're going to get people complaining, well, this guy got in and I don't think he should get in. Well, everybody thinks they belong in there, but not everybody does. And it's supposed to be the idea of getting the very best.
Sure.
To promote the game throughout Chicago. Now, we promoted it not just in Chicago now. As you notice, we have Iowa players going in. And we got a complaint this year from somebody complaining, well, why are you putting Iowa players in? It's Chicago. No, we're trying to make this the National 16-inch Softball Hall of Fame. And the reason for that is because ASA does not do anything for us down in St. Louis. I've been to their Hall of Fame 3 different times. Al Mack and I went the first time. Went up there, and at that time there was only one guy from 16-inch that was in the Hall of Fame, and that was Eddie Zollner. So we went and looked at his plaque and looked at his jersey, and they misspelled his name on both, and not the same misspelling, 2 different ones. I went back 3 years later, and they were still misspelled.
Oh, geez.
So we wanted to make the 16-inch softball Hall of Fame. It's different than 12-inch. It's I don't even look at 12-inch. I look at our 16-inch game, and it's the greatest game in the world. Some of the greatest players. We were fortunate back when I was with the Whips. We played teams, 12-inch teams. They couldn't beat us at 16-inch, but we could beat them at 12-inch. So our game was pretty special.
Yeah, for sure, without a doubt. I mean, there's a quality to this game that I'll talk to people in other states, and they're like, "What's this picture that you take on Saturday with that beach ball?" I go, "You want to try to play it?"
Yeah.
Come on over here. We'll play you.
Yeah.
I get that a lot on Saturdays from people or old friends or old acquaintances when they.
Well, so many people call it the mush ball, but it's not a mush ball. That's hard. I don't realize that.
Dangling still.
We have done tournaments now. The Hall of Fame's done tournaments. We do them here in Arizona. We've had 2 in California.
Right.
There's tournaments in Yuma. If no one's ever been to Yuma, if you haven't been there to see that tournament on Memorial Day weekend, that compares to Forest Park. It might even exceed it, believe it or not. It's a fantastic tournament, and those players are incredible. They really are. We have tournaments in Iowa. Iowa is a great place for 16-inch softball. A lot of the players in Chicago, they don't play without the gloves and stuff. Well, they really turned it around, and they do play a lot of games without the glove.
Yes.
And I go back to Stover's. When I was with the 45s, Stover's beat everybody in Chicago. There's only one team they couldn't beat, and that's not putting them down, not putting us, up on a pedestal. They couldn't beat the 45s.
Yeah.
So, but they took 4 second places. That means you beat everybody but the one team. The 45s were a pretty doggone good team. They were hard to beat.
Exactly. Well, you know what? I thank you for touching on what you did and how you got to the level that you got to, because I mean, I really started to see it these last few weeks with you and really wanted to reach out to you for this evening. Let's talk about this Hall of Fame thing and how it's worked in the sense of the voting and everything else, because I learned a lot here in the last couple of weeks, and I want to thank guys like you and Paul Rowan and the rest of the board members who have kind of brought me along here with this. Let's talk about criteria when it comes to the player. Yeah, I mean, like you said, not everybody can bat 750 and
No.
that. Well, and of course, let's talk about player first. And then we'll talk about, maybe we'll break it down between team and player, the team and the player. Let's talk the player. How do you break down the player? Let's say, whatever you want to bring up, Joe Smith or.
Well, the first thing you have to do, John, is a player or somebody on the Hall of Fame or somebody out there has to nominate them. There's a nominating procedure, and it's all written out. It's on our website. You can call Paul anytime, and you can have it sent to you, emailed to you. But there is an application that must be filled out. Some of the criteria is you must have been in the game a minimum of 10 years. Okay, 5 years if you were an impact player. And there's some players that may not have been there 10 years, but when they played those 5-6 years, They were major impacts. So an application has to be filled out completely. Then you have to do a small bio about yourself, or somebody has to do it for you. And then there has to be a picture. When that is done, it's sent in to either Paul or to the Hall of Fame. Then Paul goes through them and assigns them to a committee. There's four different committees. Now there's the veterans, there's a current, 93 to current, there's the veterans committee, it used to be the 60s and 70s, and so it's all these different categories. There's a women's committee, now there's a kind of an Iowa committee. Or we call it out-of-state committee, not just Iowa, it's going to be out-of-state committee. So when the applications are gone through by Paul, and he kind of checks to be sure that they meet some of the criteria, or most of the criteria, then he turns it over to the committee, and now the committee has to go to work. So they'll bring up, we might get 30 applications a year. They will go through them, and they will check them out, and if they meet the full criteria, they'll bring them up for a vote within the committee. And the committee comes back to the whole board and says, we're recommending these 5 to go on the ballot, or these 9 go on the ballot, whatever it may be. You know, they're deserving, they meet all the criteria. Whether they get it or not is still up to the vote. From that point, a ballot is established, and the ballot goes out, and then people can vote online, or they can vote in person. And how that works is online, the general public, and I'll explain why the percentages, they get 10% of the total vote. The reason for that is a lot of times when you get the public vote, they're voting for Brian Kubicki. Oh, I know him. I'm going to vote for him. You know, he's my favorite, even though I might not, I know I don't qualify. You know what I'm saying? I'm not that kind of a player. But they do that because they know that person. So they get 10%. Then we give 15% of the total vote to past Hall of Famers. And I do all the tallying here. And when I go through them, last year I went through almost 2,300 ballots because people say I'm in the Hall of Fame, but they're not. Or I was on a team that's in the Hall of Fame, so that makes me a Hall of Fame player. No, it does not. You had to be inducted in the Hall of Fame. So those people get 15% of the vote because we feel they know the players based on, you know, past performance and because they played.
Sure.
The committee, or then actually the committee gets 45% of the vote because they're the ones doing the research, doing the follow-ups, calling, making sure everything's there to quantify whatever that application says. And when that's done, then it goes to the board, and the board gets 30% overall. Now, on the voting, if you're on a committee, like I'm on a committee with the 93 at present, and I vote on that committee for, we'll say for John, I voted for you to get in the Hall of Fame. I am not allowed to vote as a board member too, because that would be double votes. So we eliminate that. So it's just one, everybody gets one vote like it's supposed to be. So then it comes back, and then we tally them all up, and everything is sent to me. And I have a big spreadsheet that I designed. And you know it because now this year is the first year you've done it.
Yes.
And it's all brought back. And if it's sent back to me, and say we'll take the women's division. Say, John, you sent yours back, and you don't know anybody in the women's division, but you want to vote. Well, we want all the votes to count. So what we would do is that on this spreadsheet I have, yours will automatically go in as whatever the committee recommended. So that person still gets votes, even though you don't know who they are, but the committee does. So every board member gets a vote, not just, half of them. And because I always used to hear, oh, Ray or Ron put them in just because they like those guys. That's not the case. It all comes down to how the board votes, how the committees vote. From that point, then I do the spreadsheet, add them all up, and then it goes to a point system. And what I mean by that is you have to get a minimum of 74% or better. Now, in the past, if you were a top vote getter from all the committees and the ERA's committees and stuff, then you would get, like in the case of the ERA committee, they get 45, and then it would go down from there. We prorated it down. This year, it was changed that the top 2 vote getters will get the top 45 points, and then it's prorated down as the votes come in. We felt this way. One of the reasons for it is we had some guys that are truly a Hall of Fame player, but the competition they're up against in that year is pretty tough. There's like 4 guys that should be in there that it's hard to get them all in. Sure. So by doing this, the vote totals come a little bit different. So this year, when you see the results, there's 3 people going in the present era. There's 3 in the women, There's 2 in the Iowa because all of them exceeded the 74%. Unfortunately, some guys might have reached 70%, only got 73. Well, unfortunately, they're going to go to next year's. They're not taken off the ballot. They're not going to be hurt in any way, shape, or form, but they'll go back in the ballot next year. And hopefully they'll be more successful then.
Ronnie, how long do they stay on that ballot? Let's say the guy that got to 70% this year.
They're on the ballot. Once you get on the ballot, it's technically 3 years. You're on the ballot to be eligible. Because again, having a 3, now we've exceeded that, even though it says 3 years, we've exceeded and almost made it up to 5 years. And the reason for that is, again, there's a lot of times you're up against, again, I'll take myself against you. You might be the greatest player. You might be a Keith Filkins. And I might be, a great player and deserve the Hall of Fame, but I'm not going to beat Keith Filkins. He's the best that's ever played the game. So it's a competition against each other. So we kind of moved it up to 5. Some of the other criteria I meant to mention too is you have to be a minimum of 50 years old or older and out of the game at least 3 years. If you're over 50, you don't have to be out of the game. A perfect example of that was Israel Sanchez. Still plays today. He's over 50, but Izzy definitely belonged in the Hall of Fame. So when he turned 50, somebody nominated him and he got in. It was a, easy choice there. So those are some of the things that's the toughest part. People don't understand. We're trying to get the very best, but we don't want you still playing today unless you're over 50 and you can still play. But anything under that, you got to be out of the game a little bit.
And again, the minimum, you got to be at least 50 years old, correct? At least 50.
50 years old, or you can be out of the game 3 years. So in other words, if I retired at 39, I don't get an application until I'm 42, then that's okay. We can take that application.
Got it.
Excuse me, my allergies out here are bad.
No problem.
The thing is that the 50 is you can still be like an Israel Sanchez, still be playing the game at the top level, but now you turn 50 years old, which is remarkable, and still one of the great players of the game. You can still play. Then you're still eligible then.
That is what I love about this, and thank you for bringing it up the way it is, because sometimes I don't care if it's the tennis Hall of Fame or the croquet Hall of Fame or the marbles Hall of Fame. Sometimes people we get typecast into saying, oh yeah, Kubicki and John Conenna, they like Sanchez and that's why he's in. This is not the good, you guys, this is not the good guys club. You have a beautiful system of doing it. I'm going to bring up something and tell me if I'm wrong. About a year ago, Dick Allen was out by 1 vote. And of course, he stayed on that ballot and got in this year, Allen for the Chicago White Sox. But, I kept seeing rumblings even at that professional level.
Look at Ron Santo.
Right.
And Santo's a perfect example. And we've even addressed that situation what we call a Veterans Committee. So if you're off the ballot for 3 years, that's what it's going to be. If you're off the ballot 3 years, Bobby Durst was an example this year. Bobby got in as a veteran. Bobby was always up against tough competition. Not to say Bobby didn't belong. Bobby was a really good player. I played against him. I coached against him. Think the world of Bobby. He has a diehard softball man. I mean, he loves 6 years. So this year, the Veteran Committee took his application and said, you know what, Bobby, you belong in. So he was the Veteran Committee selection. So there's still a chance to get in. And that's what the Hall of Fame does. The writers can go back, they maybe make a mistake, but a Veterans Committee can put someone like Ron Santo in.
Do you get a lot of letters over the years, like say from a guy who maybe played in the 1960s and goes in through the veterans?
Yes.
Or...
Not so much in the 60s anymore, but we'll still have some of them. We kind of rely on Frank Lantine, who is our senior member. He knows a lot of them, but again, he doesn't know them all either. We'll get guys, a very good friend of mine who lives out here with us, Willie Simpson, one of the greats. To me, one of the greatest. I love Willie.
Exactly.
He has a lot of players he wants to put in. And not saying it, but he says these guys need to be not recognized, but at least considered. So he'll send people in. So we do it that way too, but we do get a lot. Now it's, again, we get a lot of them too that automatically you look at their bio and it's like, I'm sorry, but you don't meet the criteria that's there. Criteria spell out. You have to play major. You had to be a starter for 5 years. Right. If you're not a starter, I can be on the bench for the Whips, which I was with the Whips. We played in lacrosse. I had to play. I'm a coach. I had to play.
just said, I'm on the whips, I'm so and so, but I'm in the hall too. That's not the way it is. It's the team that's in the hall. So I'd like you to break down that and how the team gets the nomination to go in.
Well, truly, the teams are not in the Hall of Fame. This is something I'm working on right now. I've set up a committee. We're going to be making some changes, hopefully by next year. But what happens with a team is we get tons of applications for teams. One of the qualifications for that is you had to have your team put together for at least 10 years, okay, with a hardcore, basic core of the team together for 10 years. So that's one of the criterias. You had to play, you don't just have to play major ball. You can play A ball. You can be a rec league. But if you were together, and like we have teams going in that were together 38 years, they should be recognized. But the thing that gets misconstrued so many times is they think they're in the Hall of Fame. They are not in the Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame honored them for their past performance as players or as a team, not the players themselves. The players don't get in. They still have to go in the normal way. So the players aren't in, just the team name. What I'm working on now is there are some teams out there and that should be inducted, should be recognized as some of the best teams of all time. The Bobcats. I don't think anybody would dispute it. The Whips. I don't think anybody's going to dispute it. 45s. I don't think anybody's going to dispute it. These teams have, and some of the criteria, I've just written up all the criteria for it. It seems like I'm the only one writing the criteria, but I do get a committee. We're going to put it together. We're going to go through the criteria. They're going to put their input. We might divide it up even more. We might have an A division. We might have just a major division. We're not sure. But we're not going to go back and we're not going to re-induct the team. What we're going to do is, what our suggestion was, is to put on the plaques that are on the museum outside, the inductee park, an inducted team. So they're going to get special recognition that way, that this team was inducted because they made a major impact in the game. Back in the 80s, I guarantee you no one wanted to play the Whips. We were a great team, fantastic team. They were good. The 45s, we won 5 nationals in a row. That's unheard of too, besides the Bobcats. So people don't realize these teams, if they won a national, at least had to win one national. And so that kind of limits who we're going to get in anyways as an inducted team. But that's kind of what we're working on. Hopefully that's come out pretty soon, and we'll get it all worked out. And we're going to give these teams some honor for not just honor. The other teams can still be honored. We're going to still put 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, whatever it is, each year. We're going to honor a team, but not induct them. Only a special team will be inducted that has made all the criteria that we set forth, and then they played the years that we needed to be played.
Exactly. And Ron, again, this is something, in talking to you and talking to different board members, this is something that definitely needs to be tweaked, right? That definitely has to be tweaked.
Well, most of us feel that way because, again, there's a team out there. Okay, I'll use Ray Tops because I know Ray wouldn't mind me using it. Ray Tops team, Touch. They played great through the 80s. They couldn't beat the Whips all the time, but they did win one national in 1985, which I happened to be at. They played great. They won the nationals, deservingly so. Not putting them down in any way. But people say, well, that's not a great team. Yeah, they played great for more than 10 years. They deserve the opportunity to be inducted versus just honored. And you can't take a team like plays in, say, the LaGrange View League, and we're putting them in the Hall, or we're honoring them in the Hall of Fame. People are looking at, how can they be in the Whips? If they played 100 times, the Whips are going to beat them 100 times. You know what I'm saying? So there has to be some distinction. And I think most of the people understand this. But it's just getting it all written up, putting it together, which I'm trying to do right now. We get it all together, and then we'll present it to the whole board, and hopefully they'll vote on it and vote yes. We'll do it by the inductee day, maybe.
Great. And again, the other awards that we see, Mayor Daley, and of course, Lifetime Achievement Awards, and that these are things that, of course, collectively with the board members, just to tell our audience how these awards are met.
Well, what happens, we'll take the Frank Holden Award.
Yeah.
What we normally do is either the president or somebody, we'll get a couple names in. We might get 5 names, 4 names, 1 name, whatever. But we also contact the Holden brothers who are still involved. And we get, because they still follow the game, and then we'll get a recommendation from them. And 9 times out of 10, we will take their recommendation because they quantify it. They give us, well, this is the reason why. A good example of that was Janie Zona. Janie was never a player, but she was out every game with Lettuce. She was out there with her father, Eddie Zona. Well deserved, and she got the Holden Award. She deserved it. So this year, I think the Holden Award is going to Tommy Lantine, if I remember right. Or
Tommy Lantine, right. I know.
Tommy Lantine.
Yeah.
There's those awards, the Richard Day. Those guys are actually inducted in the Hall of Fame then. There's the Media Award. There's an Organizer Award. Without that award, I wouldn't be in. There is the Umpire Awards. A lot of people argue with me with this one. Umpires don't belong in the Hall of Fame. There are some good. All umpires aren't bad. There are some bad ones. There's no doubt about it. But umpires, without them, we can't have the game.
Yeah.
You have to have somebody there to control it.
We get some great ones come through, without a doubt.
One of the things I did back when I got on the board too is we set up what's called the Field of Dreams. Because without the fields, without the parks, you don't have games either. Exactly. So we tried to cover every basis we can. This year we've even had, well, not this year, we've done it in the past. It's called the Presidential Service Award. The first recipient of that was the grounds crew at Forest Park Park District because they were incredible. So they got a special award in the Hall of Fame. This year I nominated Frankie Lantine. Frankie is a diehard fan. I started teaching classes at DePaul University, 16 softball. Frankie was the first one to jump on board with me. We went to DePaul. We did classes there. Now we do them at the Hall of Fame. The class comes out. They get to play. They go through we educate them on what the game's about, the history of the game, and then we get them outside. That's one of my favorite things to do because, when we got them inside the Hall of Fame or in the classroom, and you see on their faces, you see the girls in the back and some of the guys, it's like they got that look, and I know what that look like because I had it many times myself at school. What the heck am I doing here? That kind of look. Then we get them outside and we give them a clinic on how to swing the bat, how to catch the ball the right way, how not to get your fingers hurt, the best way we can. And then we let them play. And we play 3, 4, 5 innings. And I'll give Fritz Zimmerman comes out every year. He pitches to him. And Fritz loves to pitch. Great sponsor. He makes sure every kid gets a hat or a shirt or something. Fritz is fantastic. One of my favorite people in the world is Fritz because he cares about the game. But when we go to get him off the field, we have a hard time. They don't want to leave. And these are the same kids I saw in classroom with their faces like, what the heck am I doing here? Why did he drag me to this? And it changes so fast. So it's an exciting game. It's a fun game. And we know that some of them, now we've done this for, I think it's 12 years I've done the class. Again, I didn't come back this year for it, but in the past I have. There's a professor at DePaul University who it's a class that all freshmen that don't live in the Illinois area or Chicago area. So he's trying to teach them what Chicago's about. So he might take them to a Cubs game, Sox game, or some kind of sporting event or something like that, or a museum to show them what Chicago is. And he called me up one day, he says, Ron, I'd like to include 16 softball because that's part of the thread of Chicago, the blue collar community. We're a blue collar. We're not like New York City with all the guys walking around with ties and stuff. We have them here too, but this is a blue collar game. So the plan has worked out great. We usually have between 30, 35, we've had as many as 45 students come in. So and it works out great.
Without a doubt. Listen, I want to tell our audience, I usually say this in the middle of this thing, but we have visited tonight with Ron Kubicki, the former president of the Chicago 16 and Softball Hall of Fame, but still heavily involved. And we thank you for this, that you're still heavily involved in organizing and being part of our board and everything else. I really will, we're going to push this video out to tell you about how this Hall of Fame is running. Ronnie broke it down really good tonight. Ron, I want to leave you with something that I didn't think mattered much to me when I first read this, but after talking to you and getting to know you now this past couple of years, the little that I've gotten to and the help that you gave me this weekend, a certain person said something about you. And it really came out in this interview tonight and came out in your bio. Ron's dedication and sportsmanship had made him one of 16 and softball's true Hall of Famers, and that comes from a great player, a guy you know, Frankie Masteri, without a doubt.
He's a good friend.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, he hits it right on you talk about the nail in the coffin. He hits it right there. Ron, I thank you for the help you've given me. I want to thank all those board members, yourself, Paul Rowan, the Franklin teens of the world, all those guys. You guys do a phenomenal job. I'm glad to be a part of this, being on that board, and I really want to thank you for tonight to breaking this down and talking about your career and breaking down this Hall of Fame thing. Thank you.
Thank you too, John. Because I do follow your podcast from the Hall of Fame. When I'm out here, I follow. We people don't like Geo sometimes, but I follow Geo's. Thank God for Geo because I get to see a lot of games I wouldn't get to see. So there's a lot of you guys out there that are really trying to help the game, and that's what we need. We need. That's why the Hall of Fame is doing these tournaments in different states. Which Fritz Zimmerman is sponsoring and doing those. We're trying to spread the game because it's the greatest game in the world.
Without a doubt, like Al Mag's book says, it's the greatest game on dirt, for sure.
Yep.
Thank you, everyone. We'll get this out to you on YouTube and Spotify. Again, we have visited with Ron Kubicki. Everyone have a good night, and we'll see you down the road here. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, Ronnie.